first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be.
Trump is motivated by the feeling he may yet win a Nobel Peace Prize.
The US president has issued a warning to the Russian president, saying that there will be severe consequences if he does not agree to stop the Ukraine war.
This is after Friday's summit in Alaska.
Face any consequences if Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
What will the consequences
there will be
be?
consequences.
Sanctions, tariffs?
There will be, I don't have to say, there will be very severe consequences.
Well, Trump's remarks came after his meeting with the European leaders. He rated the meeting 10 out of 10 and said that he is not the one who kept Zelensky away from the Alaska meeting.
We had a very good call. He was on the call. President Zelensky was on the call. I would rate it a 10, you know, very, very friendly. I know the leaders because I was at NATO, as you know. I took it from 2% to 5%. 2% that wasn't paid, 5% that is paid, which is trillions of dollars in defense capability. No, it was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky.
European leaders urged Donald Trump to press Vladimir Putin to agree to a ceasefire and a meeting with Zelensky when he sits down with the Russian president on Friday. Trump said that he will be talking to Zelensky and European leaders after meeting with Putin. He added that he is open for a trilateral with Zelensky and Putin.
It was always going to be, I was going to meet with President Putin, and then after that, I'm going to call the leaders and President Zelensky. I'm going to call President Zelensky, and then I'll call, probably in that order, the leaders. There's a very good chance that we're going to have a second meeting, which will be more productive than the first, because the first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing.
Well, Donald Trump made it clear that he does not expect a significant outcome from the first meeting. He said the first meeting will set the tone and the significant outcome can be expected in the second meeting. But he also made it clear that the second meeting won't take place if the first meeting does not go well.
With proposals from Europe on the table and clear red lines drawn between Russia and Ukraine, the common ground between Russia and Ukraine seems far away from the battleground.
And to discuss more, we are now being joined by Dr. John Braxland from Washington, D.C. He's a director at the ANU North America Liaison Office and professor of international security and intelligence studies at Strategic and Defense Studies Center. Thank you so much, Dr. Braxland, for joining us on the broadcast. Let me start off by saying that all eyes are on the Friday Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska. What can we realistically expect from this face-to-face?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And you're right, everybody is going to be watching. But I think President Trump has a lot on the line here. Reputationally, he's the one who's invited Putin to the United States, even though there are criminal charges against Putin. He is putting the American reputation on the line, if you like. President Putin is in a position where his troops have just made a bit of a breakthrough in the Donbass, and they are probably in a position where they're thinking, we've got a stronger hand here than we've had for a while, so we don't need to make too many concessions. Of course, conversely, we've seen that Donald Trump has been imposing additional secondary sanctions on India for the purchase of Russian oil, and there's talk of more severe sanctions following. Exactly what that would look like hasn't been articulated, and it's hard to be clear on what would be imposed that wouldn't have negative consequences on the United States as well. Mindful that the other major oil purchaser from Russia is Iran, of course, but also China, and China is in a very strong position in terms of its negotiating position with the United States, and having just been given an extension on the trade deal that they're proposing to reach to avoid or to reduce tariffs. So it's a delicate balance, but Putin has a slight advantage here, and of course. Volodymyr Zelensky is deeply concerned about what
Dr. Blackstone, let me come
Trump
in there.
might agree to.
Yes, Dr. Blackstone, as you mentioned that Putin has an advantage here. It's Trump who called him here. And, let's just put all these statements aside that it's a listening exercise and 24 hours later there are going to be severe consequences. It's Trump. Those comments will keep coming in. But at this point, the Russians are coming in with a lot of cards in their hands. Does it really mean that the only option here for a peace, for any kind of lasting peace, is for Ukraine to concede land?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. The current tactical advantage that the Russians have achieved near Pokrovsk is one that is a fairly tenuous one. It's one that the Ukrainians probably have the capability to push back, and it is indicative of a seesawing of the battlefield. The incremental advances that Russia has been able to achieve in the last few months have been at a huge expense materially and in terms of people's lives lost and maimed. So the strip of land that's been captured recently through infiltration tactics and adaptation of use of drones in an innovative way has given them some confidence, but as I say, it's a very tenuous hold, and the Russians have not demonstrated the ability to actually master the full spectrum of offensive and then grab and hold defensive and counterattack tactics and techniques to hold off a counterattack from Ukraine, mindful that this is quite a narrow strip of land, and Ukraine has a big stake in making sure that they get pushed back.
Understood.
Absolutely, Dr. Blackstone, and you've rightly pointed, it is a delicate balance out there, and we know that the EU leaders are urging President Trump to extract a firm commitment from Putin, warning of escalated sanctions if the talks don't go the way they are supposed to. Now, we also know that Putin has repeatedly dangled the carrot of peace only to delay the sanctions which are being threatened. Do you think this time is going to be any different, or are we yet to see some backtracking on Putin's part?
So I don't think there's any substantial evidence that would suggest any change of heart from Vladimir Putin. The industrial complex of Russia has ramped up. They're on a wartime footing. They're playing the long game, and all the internal rhetoric that I'm across and all the external announcements all seem to indicate that Russian resolve remains to try and extinguish Ukrainian freedom, to replace the government in Kiev, and to set up a puppet state. That hasn't changed. The question is, can enough pain be inflicted on Vladimir Putin and his troops to see him change his mind? But there's no evidence of that yet happening. And the question is, how much leverage does Donald Trump have in persuading Putin that it's in his interests to change course? And that's where the sanctions come in and the threat of further actions comes in.
Dr. Blackstone, thanks so much for joining us here on World DNA. Pleasure speaking with you. But as it's clear from Russia's stance, they're already into the 4th year of the war. They seem to be in no hurry to wind this up. So let's see how the talks go come Friday in Alaska. Dr. Blackstone joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thanks for having me on the show.